Just when you think things can't get any worse from the housing front, then we got the latest data today on home prices. Our Diana Olick is here to break down the numbers for us. The headline is clearly not good.
No, it's not, Simon. You may as well just press rewind on the housing clock because we're now at price levels not seen since the beginning of 2003. The gains of the housing boom are gone, and prices have still not found a bottom. Take a look. For Q3, S&P Case-Shiller reporting prices down 3.9% annually. For September, the top 10 markets down 3.3%, the top 20 down 3.6%. Only D.C. and Detroit are seeing any annual gains. All of this just pushing more potential buyers to the sidelines.
Consumer attitudes have gotten a lot more negative about long-term commitments. And the number one long-term commitment most people in this country make is buying a house.
But as home prices fall, negative equity, that is borrowers who owe more on their mortgages than their homes are worth, becomes an even bigger problem. CoreLogic has negative equity now at 22.1% through Q3. That's 10.7 million borrowers. It's even worse, though, when you add in near negative equity. That's borrowers with less than 5% equity in their homes, so they therefore can't afford to cover the cost of selling, and that brings it up to 27%. We had someone from Mark Fleming from CoreLogic saying that really puts pressure on the majority of people who are in that position who wanted to buy. Sorry, we lost that soundbite. But for the first time in this report, CoreLogic separated borrowers with just one mortgage from those with multiple loans, and they found 6 million of them, just one mortgage. On average, they were 31% underwater. That is deep. We've got plenty more about this on the blog, realtycheck.cnbc.com. Simon?
Diana, stay with us. Let's bring in Shari Olefson, who's a real estate attorney with Fowler White Boggs and director of the Carnegie Group. These figures, Shari, look pretty dismal.
Simon, and you know, the bad news is that we can expect a little more of the same for 2012. Prices will continue to go down another 2 or 3%. After that, hopefully we'll see them go up. But remember, historically, we don't have price increases without income increases. So until we fix the employment problem, that's going to continue to plague us. The other bad news is defaults. New defaults are up because the banks still have not figured out loss mitigation, and because, let's face it, borrowers themselves are becoming more and more desperate and defiant every year as negative equity increases, as we continue to have problems with employment, and as we continue to grow into a anti-bank, anti-corporation, big corporation climate country. I mean, let's face it, last year we had over $150 billion in bad debt go to collection companies. Only $40 billion of that was collected, and that includes unsecured debts, too.
All right. But, Shari, aren't you being a little conservative, though, on the prices going down next year? I mean, I've seen reports of anywhere from 5 to 10% because you're looking at ramped-up foreclosures. And when you have the market of regular homes, that is non-distressed properties, stalled because buyers are either potential buyers are either underwater, so they can't sell their house. They don't have the down payment to qualify for a mortgage. So that market is stagnant. All you've got selling right now is the distressed properties, and we're going to see ever more of those coming onto the market. Don't you expect to see nationwide prices go down at least 5 to 10% more when we look at it nationally until they bottom, perhaps toward the end of next year?
The ramped-up foreclosures, Diana, I think are a really good thing. Obviously, you know, we're getting past that robo-signer delay that was causing problems for everyone. The real problem is those new defaults. And I think when we drill down into the micro markets, it's going to depend on unemployment in a particular area. Again, like you mentioned before, the negative equity, the foreclosure and default rates. But we're also seeing markets like Washington and New York that are doing well. And even, let's look at the Miami condos, which was one of the worst markets a year and a half ago. But we had an interesting influence. Right, with foreign buyers.
Some buying. You know, Diana, what areas of the country, though, do you think are closer to bottoming than others? We know that there's been strength in Washington as the government continues to expand, and you have an inflow of workers generally into that area. But what other areas of the country do you think, because this is your beat and you do it so well, are closer to a bottom?
Well, there are definitely certain areas that are close to a bottom. Even we can say Miami, just as Shari was saying, because we have this enormous influx of foreign buyers, all cash, coming in and eating up these condos, we're beginning to see some stabilization in Miami. We're also seeing California fall out of that negative equity top 5. We saw Georgia go into it. For some reason, we're seeing Atlanta and most of Georgia in real trouble right now, and that's due to the economy. But as you say, where we see local economies doing better, that's where we're going to see improvements. So we're seeing it a little bit in New York. We're definitely seeing it in D.C. We're actually, believe it or not, seeing it in Detroit. Why? Because, well, they really hit bottom. They just couldn't go any lower, and their downfall came a bit before the regular housing crash, the overall housing crash. So they're beginning to come back up again. Yeah. So Detroit is seeing positive numbers, which is surprising. But again, it's going to be where the local economy is doing better, where the jobs are, and where you see that influx of cash coming in from potential new buyers.
Shari, a lot of people don't want the state to be as involved as it is with the housing market at the moment. But if there was one policy that stood a chance of turning it round, what would it be?
Well, I'm in favor of the new HARP provisions. I think they're going in the right direction because they're not allowing homeowners who were in default to qualify for that program. So I think that we need to see more government initiatives that favor and encourage positive behavior like that. But I have to tell you, Simon, thank God it's an election year. I think those folks in Washington will be more focused on their own jobs for next year and maybe leave housing alone to recover on its own.
Don't you believe it? Shari, thank you very much for that. Diana, thank you as well. Great segment. Thank you.